Hi friends, Chad Hauer here, team leader for the Hauer home team, serving the greater Tacoma, South Sound, Pierce County area. And I wanted to give you an update today, sharing with you what's going on in our local real estate market here. So if we look back, I'm going to share my screen here with you to show you some real-time data. If we look back, closing out the month of January, where we're at here, we can see the median sale price actually jumped up a little since December. So we're at a median sale price right now in Pierce County of $500,000. Now you can see each one of these dots represents 1 month. So you can see we peaked kind of in May of 2022, and each month we saw a little bit of a reduction in the price, median sale price, and then it came up a little bit this last month. So this still represents just shy of a 2% decrease since January of the year prior. So we have seen a decline in home values, and I think it's a healthy thing that we're seeing. So let's dive in and discuss this more, shall we? So this represents 100% of, oh, I'm sorry, let me actually go back to this. This I think is very telling. So right now, when we're looking at original list price, we were seeing, this is a 5-year history. This period this is COVID right here, right? When we've got 2020 through here, we're seeing just this huge portion of homes were going starting at 100% of list price and then got up to 106% of the original asking price is what they were selling for. So if a home listed for 100,000, for example, it was actually selling for 106,000. Actually, it might be a little bit more than that. But just to give you an idea of what we're talking about with these percentages here. And now we can see from the original list price, most recent data shows us that it's selling at 95.7% of the original list price. So that's a big difference from going from this basically whatever you ask you're going to get to people aren't willing to pay anything anymore. But look at this next slide here that I'm going to show you shows once a price is reduced, we're still getting 100% of the asking price. So there's something to recognize there. It's not that people aren't willing to pay an asking price. It's making sure that the list price, the asking price of a home, is actually lined up with the market value of the home. Gone are the days where we can ask whatever we want for a house and expect buyers to just knock down our doors and be willing to pay not only that, but more. So this is something that I think is really helpful to see. We are still seeing 100% of list price is the median sale price after a home has been reduced. So buyers aren't coming in regardless of what the price property is listed for and lowballing. They're just being mindful of not paying what more than the market is bearing right now. So I think that's really helpful to see that and understand. So when we look at time frame on market, we are seeing 38 days on market. So that's jumped up significantly too. This time last year, we were 5-7 days on market, and now we've jumped up to 38 days. So much longer time frame on the market. And part of that is also a matter of, the original list price not being in alignment with what the market is bearing. So it creates a longer time frame. If you get it on the market and price it where the market is at, I think you're going to see a lot quicker than that 38 days. But we're definitely seeing a change take place. It's a pretty drastic difference there. So going forward, when we look at the number of pending sales, that means a buyer and seller have agreed to terms. The sale hasn't officially closed, but they're under contract on it. The number of pending sales is up 2% since this time last year. So pretty minimal. It's been about status quo. And now when we look at the number of homes for sale, this is actually really good news. The number of homes for sale is up 202% since the same time last year. So for buyers out there that have been really frustrated by the lack of options, we are seeing more options coming available, significantly more. Now, it's still not a lot of options. I'll give you that. We're still below what a normal market would have in regards to homes available for sale, but it's drastically more than it was. It's coming from a white hot market where we just saw really hardly anything available whatsoever to now, okay, we've got some options. When we look at the number of homes that have actually sold, meaning the buyer seller came together and it closed, that is down 36%. So we're definitely seeing less transactions taking place in general. You can see that's represented by this green over a 5-year period. We're at about the lowest we've seen in the last 5 years, not about, we are the lowest we've seen in the number of real estate transactions currently happening. And yet the amount of homes for sale, there's, you know, you're seeing, okay, it's getting more normalized. So when we look at the impact of monthly housing and how inventory affects home prices, I want to bring this kind of helpful scale to your attention. So less than 6 months represents a seller's market. If we have 6 to 7 months, that's typically what we would call a neutral market. It doesn't favor sellers and it also doesn't favor buyers. And then greater than 7 months represents a buyer's market where it does favor buyers. So right now, when we look at Pierce County area, we are up in the amount of inventory. We're at 2.3 months of inventory. So still looking at that, it is very much so considered a seller's market. It favors sellers right now. And you can see it's changed quite a bit in the last year or so, that there's been more and more inventory has been coming on. However, when we look at a balanced, stable market, it's kind of that 6 months of inventory. We still have a long ways to go before we get to that 6 months worth of inventory. And I think there's a lot of economic factors that are in play that are probably going to make it pretty challenging to have that much inventory come to the market. So what about interest rates? Talking about economic factors, I want to dive into that briefly here. So if we look at, for almost 50 years now, this is the 30-year mortgage rate that's moved basically right in unison with the 10-year treasury yield. So the blue line here represents the 10-year treasury yield. And the green line is the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. You can see they're almost identical, with an average spread, the green line being about 1.7 basis points above the 10-year treasury yield. So isn't that interesting, just watching how related those two data points are? So if we fast forward to today, we can see the 10-year treasury yield has been going up. Obviously, interest rates have been going up. But it doesn't totally line up with what's taking place. So if we look at, okay, so this represents, you know, normally 2021, we saw the 10-year was at 3.49. And then if you add that, you know, the typical, what we were talking about back here, that average spread of about 1.7, then that puts the mortgage rate, you know, 5.28, right in that range. That makes sense. Today, we're looking at, it's more like we've got the 3.5% 10-year rate. And then there's this huge spread in between that's larger than normal, which has had our rates higher. And so right now, we're actually seeing rates have come down slightly, but they're kind of in that 6 to 6.5 range is what we're seeing right now. If we would be following this normal spread, it would be, rates would be more around 5.5. So what we're seeing there is the banks, this is what I believe is happening. The banks are building in cushion because they know, you know, the Fed has already said they're going to continue to raise rates a little bit as time goes on. As I'm recording this, just the other day, they raised another 0.25 percentage points. So that doesn't necessarily, fortunately, that doesn't mean mortgage rates just increased by 0.25, because you can see the banks that are giving the mortgage loans already had that kind of cushion built in and were planning for that. So the Fed has said they're going to continue to raise interest rates, and we'll see how exactly that plays out. But we can see this number here is kind of what the Fed is actually loaning at versus what the banks choose to lend it to the consumer at. So this is from Chief Economist of the National Association of Realtors. He said the upcoming months should see a return of buyers as mortgage rates appear to have already peaked and have been coming down since mid-November. Some more experts, David Stevens, former Assistant Secretary of Housing, he said Be advised, this may be the one and only window for the next few years to get into a buyer's market. And remember, as the Federal Reserve data shows, home prices only go up and always recover from recessions, no matter how mild or severe. Long-term homeowners should view this market right now as a unique buying opportunity. And when we look at this is interesting. So Lori Goodman from Urban Land Institute said the risks of ARMs were substantially mitigated by the regulatory reforms put in place after the 2008 bust. Today's ARMs are not the risky products of 2008 or even the pre-bubble version. ARMs are no longer something to fear. In fact, they could help borrowers save money and reduce barriers to home ownership. If you're considering an ARM, let's have a talk. There's some things that still concern me about it, especially if it's for your primary residence, the house that you're going to be living in. However, it is good to know there are lots of different mortgage options right now. We're seeing like what's called a 3-2-1 buy down that I think is a lot better way to go, where we're seeing, sellers may potentially buy down the interest rate for the first couple of years for the buyer that make it much more affordable for their payment until they may choose to refinance, within those 3 years, or it just saves them some money up front for the first couple of years. So lots of options there that we can discuss. So reach out if you have questions on the financing side. I personally am not a big advocate of ARMs, even though, this makes sense what Lori is saying here, and it can make more sense for investment specific type properties. But if it's the roof over your own head, I think it's good to have real certainty as to what you're going to be paying long-term there. So what are experts projecting for 2023? We're seeing this is, looking at all sorts of different experts, different groups. Some are pretty optimistic about what's ahead. Some are more pessimistic about and conservative about what's going on. On average, it's looking like it's just going to be a neutral market if we kind of combine all the different expert opinions here. So you can see, Realtor.com is projecting, this is nationally, 5.4% appreciation, 2.6% appreciation. National Association of Realtors is, it's just a little bit of appreciation. Freddie Mac is seeing a little bit of negative depreciation. Master Builder Association also down. Fannie Mae is saying home values are going to be down, and Zelman is projecting a little over negative 5% in home values over 2023. So this is interesting. This is more like, what are the big banks specifically? And I always like to see like, what are the big banks saying, because they usually have a little bit more intel, and the big money, it's always interesting to follow to know, okay, what numbers are they tracking? What are they looking at? So the big banks are calling for home prices to depreciate in 2023 here by anywhere from 5 to 10%. And I think that's reasonable. So on average, it looks like about 5% decline. Now, fortunately, for any homeowners out there, we had far more appreciation than that in the last couple of years. So it's not like it's just absolutely devastating if we lose 5 to 10% appreciation over the next year. So the one thing they do all agree on, though, is while home prices are likely to fall, that 2023 may be a tougher year. In 2024, the expectation is that it's gonna stabilize and be a little bit smoother, more along a normal market where 3.1% appreciation. And again, this is national. Every market's going to be a little bit different. I think it's interesting to take this data that a lot of the experts are having out there, and I just want to equip you with some helpful information as you're making your decisions. Another thing to keep in mind is median rent. So this is median asking rent since 1988. What do you notice when you look at this? There's a very clear trend, isn't there? Rents keep going up. So if you are not currently a homeowner, buying a home, no matter what the interest rate is, people are scared that interest rates are now in the 6s, and boy, compared to renting, 6% is interest is nothing compared to paying 100% interest, which is exactly what you're doing when you're renting. That money is just gone, never to be seen again. So buying a home is absolutely beats the alternative than renting. and it's always been a great way to build your own wealth. So if you are renting, or if you have family or friends that are renting and you'd love to help educate them and equip them to be able to set themselves up and their families up for a more stable long-term financial future, I'd love to be a resource and introduce them, educate them through the process here. So in conclusion, I think it's fair to say that headlines are all over the place. There's so much confusion right now as to what's going on, and the headlines love to terrify, and they terrify more than they clarify. So keep that in mind. Headlines are there to sell. They're clickbait. They want to get people to read through them and terrify them, because that's what gets people's attention. So I'm here to help clarify. And remember, it's a fool's game to wait to time the market. So if you're thinking, gosh, I don't want to buy yet because it looks like home values are probably going to be declining, that's a scary place to be, because you can hold out and totally miss lots of opportunity where you could have been building wealth in the meantime. So time and time again, we find that it's about time in the market. So actually investing and holding more so than timing the market. Now that's true whether it comes to real estate, that's true in the stock market. Get in the market, let the market go to work for you, and just hold it and enjoy. If it's your own personal residence, there's certainly, personal reward of being able to own the roof over your own head. So it's always a good time to make a plan, and I encourage you, get with your local realtor and your local lender, and let's put a plan in place for you. Thanks so much for your time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Here at the Hauer Home Team, we're here to serve you and the people you care about, and we appreciate your time. Have a great day.